going, I think that slate, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be wiped clean.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably right for the foreseeable future, and I think your point there is very accurate and an important one. Look, he can go wherever he wants, and he can't control which teams have the salary cap or the willingness to make space, so he's hampered a little bit by that. But certainly going to the team that you've probably had the most animosity with over the last couple of years is going to do some damage into that. And I agree with you. I think he had earned that reputation, Myles, here in Indiana. He had earned that legacy over 10 years for a lot of the reason that I already discussed. You know, he's a good basketball player, no question. But he really embraced this city. And I don't need to tell you this or anybody listening, but, you know, fans love players that come in from a different area of the country and really embrace Indianapolis and Indiana as home. Tyrese Halliburton's done an incredible job of that. And part of the reason is that players haven't always done that. And players have asked out in the past that have been all-stars. And when a player does it and embraces the city, I think that makes it even more impactful. And so, look, I think had he stayed here, and again, he gets to decide what he values, you know, a few $1 million perhaps difference, or, you know, a legacy being somewhere where, you know, you're comfortable and valued. I mean, those are things that he has to weigh. But I think if he stays here for another 5 years and the Pacers continue to have a decent level of success, that he goes down as not one of the all-time greats, but in maybe that next tier, you know, the Rick Smith tier of the Jalen Rose tier of players that have come through here and done a lot of really good things. And I think he's probably lost the ability to be in that tier. I think, you know, and the other interesting thing is here is he's, you know, maybe just starting the back half of his career, so he'll have, as long as he stays healthy, a long NBA career still coming. So it's a funny conversation, an interesting conversation to have right now, because we just experienced throughout this playoff run and in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the NBA Finals, you know, I thought the Pacers and Karen Atkinson and Michael Hornbeck and that group did an incredible job of getting these former players back and into the building for those key games. I thought it was so cool to see not just Reggie Miller, but I mean, it was a who's who of guys that have played for the Pacers since the 90s. And I can't imagine a day, 25 years from now, where Myles Turner is a part of that alumni group coming back. I mean, listen, if Ron Artest is capable of getting a standing ovation at a game, I think that tells you.
See,
that
now you're using logic. You're using logic against me right now. Thanks a lot.
Well, here's where I agree with you is on the short term.
Yeah.
No question. I think the long term, I think 20, 25 years from now, I can imagine a world where Myles Turner's back in the building for a deep playoff run, you know, with his right hand held up as he's getting acknowledged and cheered by the fans. That's the long-term view. The short-term view, probably for the next decade or so, will be fairly different from that.
Oh, I know there are a lot of people out there that want me to. So who's going to be acknowledged first, he or Andrew Luck? These are different circumstances, but maybe that's a question certainly for another day. And we'll save the sinners. I know James Wiseman is back in the fold. Jay Huff over the weekend was acquired from Memphis. We'll get all those angles. But I did want to ask you about the Fever. This Fever team right now, they play again that matinee coming up on Wednesday against Golden State at 9-9. Where is the level of disappointment with being even on the season to this point?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting question, and the obvious asterisk here, which is a massive, you know, Gainbridge Fieldhouse-sized asterisk, is that you played half of your games without Caitlin Clark, exactly half of them, and that's not counting the Commissioner's Cup game, which doesn't count for official stats, but if you want to count it, she's missed more than half of the games the Fever have played in this year. And look, I think it's abundantly clear that Fever are a much better team with her on the floor. That is not exactly rocket science, although that's for some people, you know, perhaps that hasn't been as obvious as it should be. But look, I mean, you're talking about a player who led the league in assists when she went down, was leading the league in assists this year, 20-point per game score. And it's kind of a nerdy basketball term that's gotten thrown around in the last 5 or 10 years, but it really is accurate here and apt in this situation, which is just the gravity that Caitlin Clark has on the floor, it's hard to describe and to put into words. I mean, even when she goes 1 for 10, which doesn't happen very often, her impact, just her sole presence on the floor, dramatically changes things for the better for the Kelsey Mitchells of the world and the Aaliyah Bostons of the world, who both, by the way, are playing great lately. You know, it's one of those scenarios where the Sparks game was a really frustrating one to lose because you led for almost the whole night and you lost a 4-point lead in the final 90 seconds. If you win that game, counting the Commissioner's Cup game, you've won 4 in a row. You've beaten Minnesota and Las Vegas, 2 good teams in that stretch. You're on a winning streak. You're 2 games over 500. The tone of this conversation right now could feel very different. But unfortunately, the Fever weren't able to hold on. And that's been, you know, probably their biggest challenge. If you look at things like point differential, and if you look at net rating, which just take how you play over the course of the entirety of the season and don't break it up into individual games, the Fever fare quite well in those metrics. They were the 3rd-ranked team in the WNBA in the net rating going into the game against Los Angeles. And I would say that being 3rd in net rating without Caitlin Clark for half of the year is an incredible spot to be. But obviously, the rating that matters is not the net rating. It's your record and where that ranks in the standings and all of that. And the Fever and clutch games, which are games decided by 5 points or less in the final 5 minutes, are 3 and 7 in those games. We saw the Pacers dominate that category and how impactful that was for the Pacers. So I think Indiana's, you know, their biggest adjustment here as you look forward is obviously they need Caitlin Clark back in there, and hopefully that's coming soon. And I think her mere presence alone will impact this in a positive way. But the Fever are playing a lot better than their record suggests because they haven't closed out games quite as well as they could, as they should. And I think that's something that you'll look to see improve upon here. And we're getting close to the midway point of the season. You know, even with a 44-game season, which is the most the WNBA has ever played, you still get to the halfway point really quickly, especially if you're somebody that's a Pacers fan that's used to kind of the marathon that the NBA season is. The WNBA season is less of a sprint than it used to be when it was 34 or 36 games. But 44 games, you still hit that midway point really quickly. And so, you know, I think they, to a degree, get a little bit of a longer leash because of the absence of Clark, and I still think there will be a reintegration period before they get back up to speed. But I'm a glass-half-full guy. I tend to think once she gets back out there, as long as she can be healthy, that this team, you know, has the roster and has the capability of playing at a really, really high level. We've seen that in spurts throughout the year. We just haven't seen it consistently yet. And hopefully with consistency to Caitlin Clark's health, that will lead to consistency on the floor too.
He listens to this show. He appears on this show, yet he does not listen to the JMV Takeover. We'll work on that later. It's Pat Boylan, the voice of the Fever, and, of course, of the Pacer Radio Network on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Pleasure, man. Good to have you back, and we'll do it again soon. Now, are you a part of that matinee coming up on Wednesday?
Yes, we will be doing it. It'll be on WTHR. It's our annual matinee Kids Day game. So
nice.
For those who are out and about, you know, you can catch us on the phone. We'll be on WTHR, Fever Direct, and all of that. I also want to say that for like 8 months of the year, your JMV Takeover show crosses over and runs simultaneously to a Pacers game. So it's a little bit hard for me to always listen.
I understand.
I'll put it on the I'll put it on the calendar so I don't get another slap on the wrist when I'm on here next time.
I'm going to mark the tape, by the way, too, because Scott Swan is going to be, I guess, incredibly upset. Who does the noon, Channel 13, the noon show? Is it not Swan? Who does that? Who are you screwing off the air?
Scott? That's a good question. Because normally we're in a little bit of a gap.
Well, and Days of Our Lives is on Peacock now, so you don't have to upstage Days of Our Lives anymore.
Well, that's good. We wouldn't want to do that, but no. In reality, you know, for so many years we didn't have the platform with the Fever that we do now, and to be on WTHR. This is our second year of it, but it's so cool here locally to have a partner, you know, that has, you know, the name recognition and the brand and everything that WTHR is. It's just so cool here to have the Fever on WTHR and to have it accessible at the level that it is. So I know Wednesday during the day is not always primetime viewership for fans, especially if you have a normal 9-to-5 type job. But hey, that's what phones are for. You can tune us on whatever TV app you have. You can watch us there on your phone during the workday, and hopefully we'll make it an entertaining one for you.
I'll tell you in closing here what else you do. You give Jake Query the day off, and you add 30 more minutes to my time of the day. Well done. Thanks a lot.
Well, you can you can blame John Nolan for that. I'm only taking blame for the TV side of things. I'm not
Gotcha.
taking
I appreciate you, brother, man. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, John. Talk soon.
It's Pat Boylan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. DeMichael Cole covers the Memphis Grizzlies. Jay Huff. All right. What are we thinking? Big man by committee. Somebody's got to get a jersey with all the numbers on the back and by committee. DeMichael Cole, Dustin DePurak, Dave Matthews Band tickets, and more coming up. Sit tight.
Swanson, full steam ahead. Over there. I want to go over there. Move over, Swanson. I'm driving.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Yeah, Yacht Rock Classic right here from Jerry Rafferty is appropriate because you guys are asking, how did things go over the weekend at Paradise Day Watson? Incredible. Chris Hagan showed up to Paradise Day Watson on Friday. Shout out to Chris Hagan. Fox 59 last night, if you guys watched. Awesome per usual. Just a ratings killer. Oh, in a good way, by the way. Ratings slayer. I should also, and James likes that too because James loves Slayer. Let's give a couple of shout-outs. Our friends of the show. Normally I make fun of local Emmys, but I won't here because it benefits us because I love the ladies. Gina and Lindsay.
Oh, really?
Took home Emmys.
Well done.
I saw. Awesome. I think Gina, our good friend Gina Galeros, or as you also know her, the Princess of Ice Cream, won her first Emmy. That's her first Emmy? How's this the first time for Gina Galeros? How did she not win a Spectrum Award on radio for the content on this show? Because those are bullcrap? That's why.
Yeah.
You want me to get into the Spectrum Award in the world of radio? What horse crap that.
Just go on a long tangent about it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody won't hear that. But no, shout out to Gina, her first Emmy. And I think it was for her coverage of the NBA All-Star Weekend a year ago in February here in Indy. And she gave a shout out to good friend from Channel 13, Travis Peters. You know, when I did Weekend Sunrise, I did highlights and sports for 3 years on Saturday and Sunday mornings on Channel 13 WTHR. I didn't know how to edit, which I still don't, and Travis Peters did it all. And when Travis Peters wasn't there on a Saturday or Sunday, I was completely screwed. And Val Jackson, whom I love a great deal too. So shout out to Gina and Lindsay. So now we can say our Emmy award-winning supporting cast.
Exactly.
When we go out doing road shows right there. Very proud of them.
Tell them to bring their little statues.
I've won one thing. I think I won Sportscaster of the Year in 2020 in the state of Indiana. Ironically enough, there was no sports. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Speaking of sports, covers the NBA, the Grizz down in Memphis, the Memphis News, Locked On Grizz, and so much more, really. DeMichael Cole joins us now. Hello, DeMichael. How are you?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Good to have you on the show. Thank you for taking part and the time this afternoon. So, Jay Huff, run the numbers with us right here. Does that make sense as far as a big man by committee situation the Pacers are embarking upon right now?
I think Jay Huff makes a lot of sense. Jay Huff was solid. You know, he wasn't a bad player, so to speak, with the Grizzlies. And if you look at the course of his career and how it's shaped out, you know, he's kind of like your typical NBA journeyman, you know, working his way into finding an opportunity. He gets to Memphis and lands comfortably on his feet. And, man, he really can shoot it. Like, you'll see his numbers in Memphis. He shot it 40% from three-point range, and he kind of really found a role in that way. But I'm sure some of your listeners and some Pacers fans may be wondering, well, why were the Grizzlies willing to trade him? And the simplest form of that is there was just some redundancy in what he does and what some of the other players who are already being relied upon do. When you look at Jaren Jackson Jr., when you look at Santi Aldama, that's already a couple bigs that the Grizzlies have that stretch the floor decently well. But even from a weakness standpoint, right, like Jay Huff, he can block some shots, but guess what? So can Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think from another standpoint, like, he's not a great rebounder, and Jaren's not a great rebounder. Santi's not a great rebounder. So the Grizzlies, when they go out and get Jock Landale to replace him, it's because they're looking for a different type of big, not necessarily one who's better. It's a different type. And in Jock Landale, they're getting more of that tough, rugged, rebounding type big. So with Jay Huff, I mean, when I watched the Pacers, you know, throughout their playoff run, you saw them play some five-out basketball and things like that from time to time. Where he's gonna, I mean, he could be a very efficient player in that type of role. And you talk about strengths and weaknesses, he tends to play better when he is able to play that, I guess you could say, more finesse brand of basketball. If you go back to this past season, and the teams that he struggled against more so than others was those physical teams. He started, I think, 2 games last season with the Grizzlies, first 2 starts of his career. And I think the first one was against the Lakers. And before that game, Jay Huff was on a run, guys, where he was playing really good basketball. And I remember before the game when he was announced as in the starting lineup, people were like, oh, okay, this is cool. Because Zach Edey came off the bench in that game. He was starting over Zach Edey, but it was because of his ability to space the floor and all those things. But then eventually, you know, the Lakers at the time, they had a healthy Anthony Davis. They had a very physical front court, and he just couldn't be a difference maker in that game. But there were other matchups where Jay Huff really was a difference maker with his ability as a pick and pop shooter. He'll get some blocks from time to time. And, that's pretty much the basis of his game.
Yeah, DeMichael Cole joins us, covers the Grizzlies. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. It did seem like that his clock diminished over the course of the season to really nothing late. And I thought that you were speaking to some of the reasons why that happened, too. And really down there, this is just kind of on the outside looking in. It seemed like that they had a lot of stuff working where they never could honestly figure out exactly what they wanted out of all that stuff. I know that sounds simple, but that's how it looked to me.
Yeah, Hey, you sound like you've been down here just like me.
Well, but they got a lot of Indiana. You used to have a lot of Indiana dudes on that team, and now they're all gone.
Yeah,
for the most part. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, they definitely have had a lot of. Every time we go back to Indiana, you see a lot of fans who love Dez, John Conchar, and some of the other guys that they've had, from Indiana there. But yeah, to your point, it was more schematically than anything. So before last season, the Grizzlies introduced this new system. It's less pick and rolls. It's heavy on spacing. It's different than anything that anybody else was doing in the NBA. So you go back to the beginning of the season. John Morant was struggling with it, and everyone couldn't fathom why a player who's routinely averaged 23, 24 points a game all of a sudden is struggling to score 20. But they didn't run me. Like, if you look at pick and roll usage over the course of the league, the Grizzlies were 30th, and they were 30th by a long shot. Their offense was more dribble drive, replace players into spaces and things like that. It was the system kind of thrived from like a D3 coach who became to be an assistant with the Grizzlies and brought some of those principles. So they basically tried to zag when the rest of the league was zigging, and it didn't really work out. And that's when you saw the coaching change with Taylor Jenkins and all that. And over the course of the season, how that pertains to Jay Huff is, at the beginning of the season, he made sense with this whole new emphasis on spacing. And, I mean, we saw it with Zach Edey. Like, Zach Edey went in a different direction, whereas Jay Huff played a bigger role at the beginning of the season and ended up being a non-factor towards the end. Zach Edey played a decent role at the beginning of the season, but wasn't really, being used to his strengths. Like, he was basically spacing the floor out on the perimeter a lot, and we were like, why is this big 7'3", 7'4" guy standing at the three-point line a lot? But of course, as the season goes on, he ends up being a more forceful player in the paint, and that's when things started to shift for them. So yeah, they just were figuring a lot out schematically over the course of last season, and then it just became a combination of, Jay Huff wasn't the physical, rugged big that they needed to play alongside of Jaren Jackson Jr., because at the end of the day, you have to be able to complement him, and then going off of that, there was redundancy between those two. Like Jaren, it's well documented that he's not a great rebounder. So that's why you operate better when there's a Zach Edey, someone to that ilk, playing alongside of him instead of a Jay Huff.
Yeah, it's almost like you just described Cleveland in the East. It was like what kind of I don't want to say this that doesn't sound great, but kind of like a dime store Cavalier team, to where you've got the ball dominant scoring guy in the backcourt, and obviously he's got things to figure out himself, but you have others. The two big scenario here where one's, better off down low, the other one's better off on the wing, and it just seems like that you almost had dude overload a little bit right there. And I think you can see by some of the tack they took to redo that roster what they felt compelled, they felt necessary to do, I guess, in this.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times when you see those, so this is basically a one-for-one trade with the Grizzlies. Like they say, hey, bye Jay Huff, hello Jock Landale. And it's not as simple as, oh, we think Jock Landale is the better big, so we're bringing him in. Like, that's like, you could put two of the best bigs of all time on the same roster, but if neither of them can shoot and you're saying, hey, play in this version of the NBA alongside of each other, there's going to be some spacing questions that come into play. So it's like, it has to be the ability. You have to have the ability to complement Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., the two players that they're building around. And when I say complement, you basically got to be able to be really good at some of the things that they're not really good at. And in the case of Jaren, like Jaren can pick and pop. Jaren's going to shoot 5-6 3-point shots a game. So Jay Huff being great at that, it's helpful, but it's not a separator on the Grizzlies, so to speak. Whereas he can go to Indy and really make a difference, more of a difference as that guy. And then with like the rim protection, like it was solid, but you also had Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey. Neither one of them were bad rim protectors, so it's not like it's Jay Huff come in the game and save us. But where they needed to be saved was when Zach Edey goes out of the game and they need another big-time rebounder, and Jay Huff wasn't that guy. So it's like there was just some redundancy. What he's good at, other players are already good at. So when that's the case, you got to go out and get something that's a little bit different. Like Jock Landale isn't a great three-point shooter, but he's a better offensive rebounder. He's a better screen setter and those things. So it's all about mixing and matching and being able to complement the stars. And Jay Huff, his skill set complements star players. When you talk about in the simplest form, he can block some shots and he can get up some threes, and he'll get them up. He'll shoot them from a trailing position. He'll pick and pop. He can catch and shoot. One of the better shooting bigs that I've seen in my time covering the Grizzlies on that roster, which may not be saying a whole lot, but he was definitely really good at that in his time.
Well, high ball screen action and the pick and pop game is one that Myles was so good at with Halliburton, and now you're going to have neither, but I'm assuming that is still going to be a major focus of the offense coming up this year. So, yeah, with that, definitely it makes a lot of sense. And how you describe the team that you cover, in getting bits and pieces on that team that match one another. That's what the Pacers are trying to do at that pivot position right now, at that 5 of trying to mix and match with different categories and different skill sets. Very similar, one individual, one team-oriented. And, man, DeMichael, I appreciate the time this afternoon. That's a really good description of what the Pacers got over the weekend in that deal, and we'll see how things goes. And hopefully it is going to be a much better season conclusion for you this coming year compared to the way that it was last year.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Appreciate you for having me. But yeah, you never know in the West, man. It gets real rough over there. But the way the East looks, you never know over there too. So, but yeah, appreciate you guys for having me on.
DeMichael, thank you. DeMichael Cole, right there. Memphis News, Locked on Grizz, a lot more for you. Jay Huff, how he described the Grizzlies and mixing and matching skill sets. That's what the Pacers are doing with the exit of Myles Turner at that position. James Wiseman signed today. So that part of it makes a lot of sense. Now, we'll see how productive it ends up being. But does it make sense? It does. All right, quick break. We'll come back. We will revisit, as Myles Turner officially announced in Milwaukee earlier today, and Kevin Pritchard with the media, the Pacer organizational figure, the head. We'll get some of his thoughts. Again, Dustin DePurak, top of the hour. Don't go anywhere. Dave Matthews Band tickets and a lot more for you. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
JMV.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Did you play that purposely? Because Scott's call earlier?
I'll say yeah. I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
take credit for that.
Soundtrack of the summer at the Indiana State Fair. The 2025 Indiana State Fair is celebrating the soundtrack of summer in partnership with Get Prepared Indiana, from what I read right here. This is the byline to it. From the exhilarating roar of the midway rides to the mouth-watering sizzle of your favorite fair foods, the Indiana State Fair is set to be your ultimate summer playlist. Whether you're a fan of live music, delicious treats, or thrilling attractions, there is something for everyone. Celebrating the soundtrack of summer is Vinyl Revival, featuring the Art of Music Experience. Number 9 at 239-1070. You're going to get a couple of passes to go. Why not? Why not? My bad to Ken Dog, James. Ken Dog is on hold for an hour and 4 minutes, and I think bailed. Sorry about that, Ken. Hey, number 9 for the soundtrack of summer at the State Fair. You're going. With our best regards. Number 9 at 239-1070. T. Shaw says, do you think there will be any half-price Bucks Turner jerseys like there were for Manning? Oh, half and half, not half-priced. Half and half, probably not. I think more people would be angry, but I think most of the people were glad to see it. Where that's probably why Myles takes a little gratification in leaving in the fashion in which he did. Just a guess. But it's something clearly the Pacers were unaware of. They did not get the means in which to counter what the Bucks offered. And to them, this is just my interpretation from what I've been told. To them, it was like, all right, I want to go, so I'm leaving. And that was that. Quick break. We'll come back. A little bit deeper into it from the star. He covers the Pacers. Dustin DePurak joins us next.
And the beat goes on. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Am I in studio all week, and how ridiculous is that? How am I expected to do a show while drinking? I guess I could do it right here. So I'm not out anywhere this week. It's a bummer.
It does not look like it.
Huh.
Of course, right now the website isn't even loading for me, so.
It wasn't doing that earlier. Was
No.
it? Yeah. It was whacked out in there, too.
Yep.
Weird. All right, then. I think later on this month we're going to be out a number of times, but this week it looks like that we're not. It happens, I guess. Hey, busy show so far. We'll recap it coming up. Now, the big news of the day, Kevin Pritchard met with the media. We'll detail that coming up with somebody that was there in just a second. Myles Turner made it official in Milwaukee a little bit earlier today, and we're trying to unscramble some of the theories. Maybe a little bit wild ass like mine. I think, though, otherwise very feasible. With that and more, and Dave Matthews Band tickets to give away before we bail today on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He's from the Indianapolis Star. He covers the Pacers. Dustin DePurac joins us. Good afternoon, Dustin. How are you?
Good afternoon. Doing all right. Thanks for having me.
I've got many theories. You don't mind to at least take them all in, and you can dismiss them if you like. But I knew this was a surprising situation for them. I knew this was a disappointing situation for them. I knew they had no opportunity at a countermeasure or counter offer. And I also know that it feels like to them that Myles, just simply put, wanted to bail. So is that 10 years long enough? Is that being the feeling that you're lowballed at the beginning and not prioritized at the beginning of this? Is it a level of money you didn't think you were going to get that Milwaukee created that nobody had ever done at that level before? Or was it, simply put, you wanted to bail and you had your opportunity to get the hell out of Dodge and that was it? Where are we going?
I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I think I guess it's some combination of all those things, or like several of those theories kind of meeting in one spot. I mean, it sounds like just coming from what Pritchard said, it does not sound like they ever made an offer that big. And I think if you were looking at this coming in, I mean, I think you saw the possibility of, okay, he's going to want $30 million. And obviously it didn't get to that. At no point, I don't think it's been suggested either through, back channel leaks or certainly for today from Pritchard, who wasn't going to give us any specific numbers. Nobody seemed to give the impression that they had ever put $27 million a year on the table. So it ultimately seems like what they got from Milwaukee was something they were at least trying to get to from the Pacers, and that it had taken sort of a week's worth of negotiations, and they haven't gotten there. And I think what Pritchard said, I think his line was basically like, he got an offer and he sort of felt like he had to take it. And what that suggests to me is it also was a place they didn't feel like they were going to get the Pacers to go. It seemed like they were sort of dragging one way, you dragging another, going back and forth and trying to see, okay, can you get him to 25? Can you get him to 24? Whatever it's going to be. And when Milwaukee, clears out the space and says, hey, we'll put 27 down on the table if you just take it right now. I think that must have been the case of like, okay, like I don't know if we're ever going to get the Pacers there. And so this offer is on the table. You might as well take it. I mean, I imagine that there's some level, like as far as the emotional standpoint, like that's going to be an interesting question for Myles whenever he meets with media. But I could see that being a thing. If they started at 20, I could see him being personally bothered by that, and it took them a whole lot of work over the course of, from the day after the NBA Finals until free agency opened. I mean, you're talking about really 7 to about 6-ish days of negotiating, and you moved them to maybe like the offer that Greg Doyle got was 4 years, 98, and so that's about 24 point. I think it's a tick under 24. And I think it was 4 years, 95. So I think that's a tick under 24. And so if it took you that long to get there, and Milwaukee comes out swinging and puts 27 right on the, 26.75 right on the table, they're like, okay, well, I wasn't, we weren't going to get there. At the end of the day, I could drag you there all day, and that offer was there. And if they started at 20, I imagine he was bothered by that, because I'm sure he felt like, hey, you said I was priority. I've been around for 10 years. I thought you guys wanted to get this done. Why didn't you put an offer on the table that gets this done? Why force me to just grapple with you this much for it? Why don't I just take something from somebody who clearly is making a point that they want it, is doing something pretty wild to open up the space to do it. I can see him coming to that conclusion that, hey, this is a team that obviously really, really wants me if they're willing to do, they're ultimately paying $49 million a year between what they're paying him and what they're paying Damian Lillard on a wave and stretch. So I could see, the feeling of, what they're making a priority, you're making me fight for it. Let me go with the team that's making me a priority.
So can you still look at, I don't think we've talked about this since this transpired last week. Does it look like the Pacers got outmaneuvered?
I mean, yes, they did. I mean, I think the fair way, there's also the question of, was it a sensible move on Milwaukee to do that? Pritchard was pretty clear about the fact, like, hey, we didn't see Milwaukee being one of those teams that, he said you even look at it and say there are teams that are under the cap and there are teams that are shadow under the cap, and we didn't think Milwaukee was either, basically. And so, in a manner of speaking, somebody pulled a really bold move to do it, and he said, hat tip to Milwaukee for doing it. But on the flip side, again, you're paying, you are waiving and stretching a 7-time All-NBA guard. You're not waiting to see what he's going to be like after he comes back from Achilles tendon tear. You're not waiting to see what you might be able to get for him in a trade or anything like that. You're just deciding to pay his, $100 million, stretch that out over 5 years, and you've got a dead cap hit of $22 million a year for the next 5 years. It's bold to go do that to try to make a move. Does that make sense? I guess it's like if someone outmaneuvers you by doing something crazy, have you been outmaneuvered, or what's that mean? I mean, I think at the end of the day, you did because you didn't keep him,
or you didn't get anything in return. That's I
right.
think
You didn't
that's
get
the
anything
thing.
in return.
Yeah.
You certainly lost. I mean, it's basically one of those things like you lost for sure. Like there's no doubt about it. You have to take the L and say, you didn't prepare for that possibility. The move in retrospect would have been just put a bigger offer out on the table, put an offer that says, I want to get this done today, the day after the finals, and say, here's 28 million, maybe I'll get to 30, but this is where we're starting. Let's get this thing over and done with. Let's get this done before anybody else has a chance to call you. That would have been the move. Obviously, they were trying to get this done at a lower number than that. And so at the end of the day, if you lose in that negotiation, then you ultimately did get outmaneuvered. But you also got outmaneuvered by somebody who was willing to put a lot more money on the table and, frankly, waste a lot of money to beat you.
You think at all there was any premeditation here as far as Myles' team understanding that they were going to be a target in this fashion of Milwaukee?
I mean,
or do you think this thing was just a really quick and almost a blinding quick process?
I mean, I can't even guess on that. I mean, I think I didn't get the impression that Pritchard felt like he was, I think he was a little bit shocked, a little bit stunned. I don't think he loved how it went down. But also, I mean, he's made points of saying over and over again, like, that's his right. Like, he's an unrestricted free agent. He heard a number that he felt like he had to go with, and that's his right. And that just tells me that they never put that offer on the table. That they realized that, okay, you got 27, you took it, and we weren't there. And so at the end of the day, you took the better offer. And so I don't know if there was premeditation.
Yeah,
in that way,
I guess the reason why I ask, and I don't know, Dustin, if this makes sense, because Milwaukee really didn't have anything else to give, and at that point you're going to have to either add a team or you're going to try to, because the Pacers would want, if they were to find out, would want to try to get compensation if they felt they were going to lose him. So I just kind of wondered if you thought maybe this goes back and maybe nobody said anything about anything up until that point. It was just a theory.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's possible, but I can't guess. I mean, I think, maybe they had a couple days' notice. Maybe somebody threw out some feelers and said, "Hey, listen, what if, how is it going over there? What would it take, basically? What kind of money would you have? Would we have to clear out to, make this happen?" And if someone said, okay, the way this is going, we were hoping to get 30, but the way this is going, we do it for 27. Is that possible? Sure, I have no idea. I don't know if that's true or not. But that's certainly possible at that point. But I would think, again, the Pacers still had an opportunity to clear them out and didn't take it. Basically, they still had time if they were willing to go. They were obviously willing to go into the tax, but only so deep. And if they were willing to go a little bit deeper, they might have been able to put an offer on the table that clears this thing out before Milwaukee had a chance to do anything.
So does this wipe the slate clean for Myles and his legacy, 10-year legacy here, and really what has been accomplished? And nobody's looking at that right now, and there are a lot of people out there that wanted to see him go anyway. Sure. But do you think this, at least for the foreseeable future, wipes his legacy clean around here?
How do you mean when you say wipe it clean?
Will not be recognized for any of it for the foreseeable future.
I think that ends up being very individual. I mean, like, will they? I'm sure they'll do a welcome back video whenever they play the Bucks, something like that. I mean, like, I don't think he was in a, and I don't know that he was necessarily in a place where you're talking about, jersey retirement event or any of those things. I mean, I don't know that he raised to that level.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, if you're a Pacers fan, you'll remember Myles Turner's legacy the way that you want to. There are certainly people that never really liked him all that much in the first place that aren't, upset that he's gone. There's certainly going to be people that are still bothered by the way that he left. There'll probably be people who, depending on what happens with Pacers Bucks games going forward, might have an even more sour taste in their mouth depending on how that goes down. There are people that are going to look at it and feel like he got slighted and that ownership was too cheap to keep him, and that are going to look back on his tenure pretty fondly. And so, I think that's really an individual thing. I mean, like, again, I don't know that you don't necessarily put him in the rafters with the Millers or even the O'Neals or anything like that. I mean, he doesn't have that kind of career, but I think you can look at 10 years, especially the way that the NBA, like the way that professional sports in general has become, it is more transient, and say, hey, that's a heck of a ride, and he was part of an NBA Finals team. And I think there's always going to be legacy there by the virtue of the fact that they've only been there twice, and he was there for one of them. And I think, that there is some level of indelible legacy there, but how you ultimately view it is going to be very eye of the beholder, depending on how each individual Pacers fan views him.
Yeah, it just, to them, it just kind of feels like that he just wanted to leave because he didn't give them opportunity at the end. As an end result, you just say, all right, enough's enough. And it's one thing if you do that in Dallas or go out west or whatever, but you do that with
Sure.
Milwaukee, and it seems like that may be a minute. Maybe going, all out and suggesting never, you can't, because we know it's sports. But at the same time, I just think for the foreseeable future, that's going to be difficult. And I think that there is going to be so much on his shoulders to perform at a high level and reclaim what Milwaukee the past 2 seasons has lost. Yeah, you think he's ready for that? What is going to be at least on his shoulders moving forward in Milwaukee?
I mean, there's a couple different ways to answer that. I mean, I think he's, Myles is Myles. I mean, I guess I've watched him play 3 seasons, and I kind of know what he can do and what he can't. And I think he's a top 15 center in the league every day of the week. I think he's a top 10 center some days. He's probably one of the 2 or 3 best three-point shooting centers. He's one of the top 5 or 6 best shot blocking centers. He's not up that high as a rebounder. He's not maybe up that high as a scorer overall. And so, okay, well, what does that mean for, I mean, he's, I think, an upgrade over Brook Lopez in the sense that he's younger. He does a lot of the same things Brook Lopez did, but, is 29 as opposed to 37 or whatever Brook is at this point. So you have to presume that you're going to get more production out of the 5 than you were if you're Milwaukee. And then that fits a little bit better, and there's some things you can do with spacing and all that kind of stuff. But, you went into this thing with Dame thinking, okay, you've got 2 superstar players. Does Myles Turner, make up totally in production for, having a year with that, or for losing Dame Lillard and moving on from him? Well, no. I mean, like, you're not putting him at that level. And if you're Milwaukee, you still got to be looking at doing some other things. It just seems like they're just trying to say, hey, look, Giannis, we're trying. But is Myles Turner enough to be your number 2 guy on a title team? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think he was a good number 3 to get them, where they got. I mean, I think a lot of people will look at the finals and didn't perform that well. But at the end of the day, I mean, he also had great performances in the first couple of series. So, I mean, I don't think you want to discount what he did for the Pacers to get to their first NBA Finals in 25 years and their second in their history. But is he willing to ready to be, or is he built to be, kind of the second option behind Giannis, and he'd be the guy right behind him, sort of try to carry them to get Giannis another title. I don't know about that. I think at the end of the day, they're going to need at least another major piece, and I don't know if they get that this year or not, but they're going to need something, somebody else they can really rely on to take some pressure off of each of those guys if they intend to be a championship team.
Dustin DePierac of the Star covers the Pacers. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So also coming out of this meeting with the media with Kevin Pritchard earlier today, a timetable for extensions for both Mathurin and Nesmith. Any takeaways from that content you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first off, I asked him, I'm like, what do you think about this? He's like, can I have 24 hours, please? Basically, I went from, the NBA Finals to Ty gets hurt to the draft to free agency, and now it's Summer League, and we haven't had a chance to even think about extensions yet. And so, for one thing, obviously the fact that that's how it's viewed is we'll get to this when we get to it, as opposed to, a couple of years ago when they did Halliburton's max extension, it was, let's do this as soon as the clock strikes midnight on the East Coast, because, we want to get this done and we want to get it done fast. So, that obviously tells you that the priority level is not the same. Now, there's a couple of different reasons for that, obviously, and I think you had to expect that. Nesmith still has 2 years left on his deal, so that doesn't have to be kind of an immediate rush. But Mathurin is in the same place as far as, rookie scale contract as Halliburton was. And so, just considering that, I thought it was notable that he said a lot of stuff about how important Nesmith was to the run and the threes he hit in that comeback against the Knicks. Said they both had a good seasons. Didn't say anything specific about Mathurin, and he mentioned later the idea, of a big trade overall, saying so generically. Didn't connect Mathurin to that specifically, but that says that that's a big we'll see. It's not something that they feel like they need to rush and get done as soon as possible, and something they need to take their time with, and it makes sense on a bunch of levels. Obviously, you look going forward and say, okay, what's this? Who is this team? He's Halliburton for a whole year, and you're looking, okay, what makes them the most competitive is you got to let Ben Mathurin rock a little bit, because you're not probably going to have a hard time playing the same style of sort of hyperconnectivity as you had with with Halliburton running the show. I mean, there's probably going to need to be a little bit more ISO ball, and you're going to have to put the ball in the hands of guys like Mathurin and Siakam, and just say go get me some buckets. For them for them to really get it with this group. And that makes for an interesting situation, because then if you're going back to Halliburton, then that's not what Mathurin's doing again, but he could put up some massive numbers. So he could, I guess, justify an extension, but also can justify, a trade that nets you a whole lot more if he goes out in a situation where he really gets to go score. If he goes and, hangs 20 points a game on people, that might up his trade value when you're looking at next offseason, or even if you're looking at the deadline. So if you're them, I mean, I guess it makes a lot of sense to wait and see. It probably makes a lot of sense for Mathurin to wait and see, how his value might be able to go up in a season where he's not playing the same style of basketball that he's been asked to play or asked to morph himself into the last couple of years. So that kind of stood out to me. I imagine they want to get one done with Nesmith, but I think they also have time. I think they can still do it. I don't think there's anything that says they can't just wait until next year. They're certainly on a very team-friendly deal right now for 3 years and $33 million. That's one of the best values that you can have, and I imagine they're not rushing to get out of that. But I think they want to keep him. I mean, I think it's very clear. I mean, I'm sure Rick Carlisle probably is not thrilled to be losing Myles Turner, but I think he'd rather lose a limb than Aaron Nesmith. So I think they're gonna find a way to get something done with that, but it might not be immediate because they do have time.
Yeah, I do wonder how Rick Carlisle feels in all of this right now. So
I do too. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you've heard a couple of different angles about how maybe this whole thing didn't make him happy about it. I guess that's for a later day. Dustin DePierac of the Star joins us. I will ask you this regarding J. Huff and then bringing back James Wiseman, and we know what they have right now in the fold at the pivot to take over from Myles Turner. Do you think they would have handled free agency or the ability to go out and get a big man differently had they had an inkling whatsoever that Myles would not return?
I mean, yeah. I think it goes back to the idea that it's like they were slow playing this whole thing, but believed they were going to win. I think that's, because if you put an offer out on the table and say at the end of the day, like like everything kind of goes in line with, if you're Turner, you're thinking you don't know if anybody out there can outbid them because, up until Milwaukee cleared out all the space, the only team that had real space was Brooklyn. And Brooklyn doesn't, has Nick Claxton, so they're not trying to pay you, and it doesn't make any sense for them to try to get after that. So everything, sort of goes in line with this. The Pacers are trying to get him signed for a number. Turner wants more than that and is trying to get a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more. And Milwaukee jumps on the scene and all of a sudden can offer something that the Pacers were not close enough to for Turner to believe he was ever going to get it. That's kind of how it strikes, because you let it go to July 1. And if you're the Pacers, if basically if you put out an offer and he's like, no, man, I'm not doing this, then they could have gone another direction and they could have signed somebody else for the non-taxpayer mid-level. And most of those guys that would have been good fits at that price were gone by the time, Shams tweets out that Myles is going to sign. So they lost out on a lot of opportunities. I mean, I think if they got really quick to the point that Myles wanted out and didn't want to sign for the number that they were going to give him, then they would have pivoted earlier. They would have went after somebody, and they might have gone after Brook Lopez, just to kind of flip assets there or something like that. I mean, I think there are a bunch of things that they could have done, different moves that they could have made. It just seems like they were fully invested in trying to make this happen, but they were not going to make the same kind of offer that Milwaukee was.
So, Jay Huff, and then Wiseman back and what they have in the fold right now. Before I'll let you go here, what are you thinking? Again, we were talking to a dude from Memphis, and they were trying to mix and match team-wise to have it work out better than clearly it did for the Grizzlies a year ago. The Pacers are trying to do that at the 5 right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it at least gives you one of them say, okay, one of these guys is going to be able to shoot and block some shots. And obviously his rebounding is, for all the critique of Myles' rebounding, Jay Huff's isn't much better. If it's, I don't think it is better. But I mean, he did, I think, make 81 out of 200 threes. It's a pretty good clip considering he was coming off the bench last year. So you've got some real shooting there. He's pretty good, kind of per 36 at, shot blocking. He was all defensive team in Virginia because of his ability to block shots there. So that's pretty legitimate. So that gives him a chance. Then you're also looking at Wiseman. It seems like Isaiah Jackson is the thing that they believe they're going to get done. He mentioned somebody today that, was that they felt like they were close to signing that had been with the team. And Tony asked him, are you talking about Isaiah Jackson? He said, that's a pretty good guess. So it seems like that's something that could be, close to being in the fold. And they still have Tony Bradley's club option. So, at some point, probably in the not too distant future, they're going to have all 4 of those guys, technically in camp. Obviously, they could move off of Bradley pretty easily, depending on what they want to do there. And if they want to keep him to camp and let him try to compete for it, we'll see. But I mean, Pritchard's view was just sort of kind of believing in the competition piece to it. You are obviously in that case looking at 2 guys on Achilles tendon tears and just hoping and trusting that at least one of them is functional, is good enough, is good enough coming back to play. And we'll see. I mean, I think Jackson looks like he's put on a lot of weight. I think it's good. I think it's good weight. I think it's muscle. And we'll see how that changes him as a player. If he still has the same type of lift or at least close to it, and he's got more bulk, I mean, he might end up making the kind of leap that they've been waiting for him to make. We'll see. So there's Wiseman's obviously a guy with a ton of potential just because of the size he's got. It could work out. It's hard to say at this point. Basically, I think it was important for them to get at least one pick and pop option in Huff, a guy that was a proven outside shooter that they could put in that mix, whether he's going to start or come off the bench, just to have that in the fold of a 5-man who could spread it out. I think that was pretty key, just to make sure that element was there. But looks like some wide open competition from there, and certainly we'll see how those guys come off of having major injuries.
It's Dustin DePurak of the Stars on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, and as always, an absolute pleasure. You can't tell me how much that Nike paid to have that billboard, that poster on the side of the Marriott with Caitlin Clark, can you? Do you know the number?
I don't know right now, but I'm sure it's a lot. I have no idea.
You got a guess?
I haven't seen it. I don't know, 5 million? Couldn't even guess. Man. Couldn't even begin. I have no idea what that kind of billboard costs. I mean,
I wonder how much I could charge to put something like that up on the side of my house.
Great question. See if you
Thank you.
see if you can farm that out.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for checking in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Dustin DePirac of the Stars on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Does anybody know the price? Anybody have a number? I don't. It takes up almost the entirety of the front of the JW Marriott. It's impressive. How much would they charge me to put up, like, I don't know, just to cover up maybe 3 or 4 windows? It's impressive. Quick one. We'll come back. Dave Matthews Band tickets. And a close to the show at 239-1070. You've got on the table what we have presented. We'll play off of you. Coming up next.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Aaron in Greenfield checks in. So I have a friend who works at Sports Graphics. They do the majority of the wrap/decal. Why doesn't Rick Clark? Rick Clark does that down in Greenwood. Rick Clark's a friend of mine, friend of ours. Everybody down there knows Rick Clark. Everybody around CG knows of Rick Clark. But no, Sports Graphics, they've been doing that forever. Great work. Aaron says the Clark wrap/decal cost around $1.8 million. That is well done, Aaron. Thank you for that information. $1.8 million. Son of a gun. That thing is tremendous. Seems like it's more and more stuff's going up there, though, too. Did they set out with that idea, I wonder, of being able to make money by doing that? Why don't the other buildings do it, too?
You kind of think that it would have been a part of the plans just because of how long it's been going on.
True.
Did they have something, because they built the Marriott for the Super Bowl, did they have something for the Super Bowl on there?
I think they had a Lombardi on the side, didn't they?
I don't remember.
I don't know. I was
12
blackballed at the time. What would I know? But I did get Adam Sandler. The hell with the ESPN guys. I got Adam Sandler. Yeah, I talked to Matt Taylor a little bit earlier today, too, the voice of the Colts. We are stumbling, fumbling, and bumbling our way to the start of the Colts season. Not too far away. That's why we got to soak up these days, these weekends, these times together. I know we will when the Colts season gets here, but you know what I mean. It's going to get real sooner rather than later. Hey, keep this in mind. And my friend Matt, I was playing hoop yesterday. I'm not completely back, but I'm almost back. Still got a little bit of calf soreness, but I'm rocking the boot whenever I can. And I'm starting playing 3 times, I think, in the last week. But Matt said, hey, what about your golf outing? And I said, Matt, check it out. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. The Invitational Golf Outing presented by Franciscan Health. That is Thursday, August the 7th. I think 2 weeks ago I made a video. I sure as hell haven't seen that yet. Where is it? Thursday, August the 7th. Tee times 10 a.m. Legends and our good friend. I'll tell you what, Ted Bishop is the absolute best. All of us will be there. All the shows, hanging out with you. And it is to support the Franciscan Foundation. So sign up, 1075thefan.com. 1075thefan.com. I would love to see you. That is August the 7th. Here's a question. Should we have Fulton play his ukulele at our golf outing? At one of the holes. That's what we should.
Just September on a loop from him.
Just hey, here's Fulton. He's got his ukulele. He's in the tee box ready to rock. Hey, Fulton. You want to play your ukulele or a golf outing?
Sure, I would love to.
Oh, I know you would love to, buddy. Hey, how'd your thing go yesterday?
Well, it was all right. Everyone enjoyed it, and I was supposed to get first place, but I didn't. So it's all right. I'll probably do it next year.
Yeah, that's why you do it, buddy. You just stay after it, don't you?
Yes, I do, and I'll be on the Home and Garden Show this Saturday.
Wait a minute. With Pat Sullivan, Denny Smith, Terry Stacy, and Allison? Yep. That show, that Home and Garden Show?
Yep.
What are you going to be doing? You going to be telling us about gardening?
I'm going to be on my ukulele and singing for them.
What are you going to sing?
September.
I went to a garden party. See if you can come up with that song before Saturday. Garden Party by Rick Nelson.
Yeah, I would try it. And I'll be 26 on July 20th on a Sunday coming up.
Man, oh, man. All right. Well, think about Garden Party, and you can play that. You get a little fresh new tune for them. All right, buddy?
Okay.
Yeah? All right, Fulton.
Yep.
Hey, congratulations on everything. Hey, by the way, too, we're giving away Earth, Wind, and Fire tickets this week. So what about your situation coming up for Earth, Wind, and Fire? That's on the way, Wednesday the 23rd, right?
Yep, Wednesday the 23rd. Hopefully I can get those tickets.
Now, you're going to be on stage, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Well, wait a minute. You're going to be on stage, but you should already have tickets. They're going to let you in, right?
Yeah, they're going to let me in.
All right. Well, keep us updated, buddy, okay?
I will. I got to head to my pickleball practice, so.
Now, you just do a little bit of everything, Fulton.
Yep, I am.
All right, buddy. Go get pickleball.
I will.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Fulton. That's something I got to see is Fulton playing pickleball, by the way, right there. See, we're supposed to have a pickleball tournament. Whatever happened to that?
I have no idea. I was just wondering that.
Yeah.
Kind of just vanished into the ether.
I think Fulton and his ukulele, first of all, you watch, he's going to learn Garden Party before Saturday. I guarantee you that. Yeah. And then also coming up on the JMV Takeover, Garden Party will be played 9,000 times. But again, Thursday, August the 7th for our fan invitational golf outing presented by Franciscan Health. Get signed up, your foursome. So Matt, my friend that plays hoop with us, indeed, your opportunity is there. I cannot wait. I love Legends in Franklin. I have no idea if I'm going to be participating. I know I'll be doing the show there, but I rarely, if ever, play, but I might for that event. I love it down there. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Yeah, all the shows hanging out. Exactly, Skivs. Quick break. We'll come back. Final calls regarding today. We found out with Kevin Pritchard the situation behind Myles and the exodus and the free agent deal in Milwaukee, what became official today. Then we talked a little bit about Jay Huff. A little bit more about the Pacers going into this season. Some Fever conversation, too. We'll recap all of that. Get to your calls at 239-1070. That is coming up next. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member. Do that today. By the way, too, Ruoff, great deals for AAA members. We like to reference those as perks. Become a AAA member today. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Dave Matthews Band, we got back-to-back shows coming up this week, Ruoff Music Center. If you're a AAA member, let me tell you, you get that Premier Lounge is legit. Shout out to Matt and Matt for that. Ants Marching. What's your favorite Dave song over there, James? You don't look like a Dave dude to me.
I'm not, but I do kind of like the space between.
That's nice. Is Dave Matthews Band, is it a jam? Is that described as a jam band like Zach Brown Band?
I'm not
like
sure.
Like Rusted Root?
I'm not
like Jack Johnson. Is Jack Johnson jam bandish?
I'm not really familiar enough with any of those
or
guys
is
to be
Dave
able
Matthews
to say.
more? Is Fish jam band?
Fish is definitely a jam band, I feel like.
All right. Grateful Dead jam band?
That's probably more of a Brent question, but I think so.
He says they're the greatest band of all time. Dave Matthews Band at 239-1070. Everybody, all week long, we have those for you. Got a couple coming up this weekend. It is a staple of the summertime in Ruoff. And again, I'd love to remind you, if you're a AAA member, you get perks. A little early entry, Premier Lounge stuff. It's rocking. I promise you're going to love it. Check it out today. Number 9 at 239-1070. You can give that a go. I'd mentioned coming up on Wednesday, the Fever will have a matinee. It's that normal matinee. A noon start against the Valkyries of Golden State, who beat the Fever, I think, in San Francisco last month. Like any word on Caitlin Clark? Still looking for that. 9-8 of the Valkyries, 9-9 of the Fever. So that tips at noon. I believe Jake is going to be out that day. Jake's going to go see Oasis in Manchester, England, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, provided the Fighting Gallagher stay together that long. But I believe we have to start at the end, so we'll probably fire things up early, right?
I think you get started around 2:30 or something, about a half hour early.
Oh, well, hell, exactly. So I probably have to do anything goes until like 9 o'clock later on that night, too. 2:30 until 9 o'clock, I'll be here for you. Now, noon coming up on, and as we mentioned, John Nolan's got the call right here, noon coming up on Wednesday. And Pat Boylan joined the show a little bit earlier. Pat has it on Channel 13 WTHR. Coming up, that's Wednesday at noon is the tip time for the Valkyries and the Fever. Kevin Pritchard with the media a little bit earlier. We've described that. Dustin DePurek of the Star was a part of the media scrum. We know a little bit more, but we have to hear the other side of it, exactly how it goes down one of these days from Myles Turner. And we also talked about how the Pacers are in the process of trying to fill that gap. And Jay Huff being one. And James Wiseman re-signed earlier today being another. Isaiah Jackson, Tony Bradley. It is truly a pivot by committee right now. As a way that it stands. And we are nearing a couple of things here, too. One, we're nearing the MLB All-Star break. Got a variety of Cubs as a part of that, as I witness. Ellie is on it from the Redlegs. And I know that at least on ESPN, they go over the All-Star snubs and the takeaway of it. But that's coming up, and I did. Normally, I watch it maybe 2 or 3 times a year, especially. I don't so much watch it. I will say this. I've watched the World Club where the club teams are playing. That hasn't been that bad. Who did I watch the other day? I've seen PSG now twice, I think. PSG is very quick. I don't know how good they are, but PSG looks really quick to the ball on the pitch. But I did watch a couple of those matches, and I watched Team USA and Mexico last night. I always shy away from getting too critical because I don't really know what I'm watching and what they're doing. I guess I kind of take the nod from those that are talking about it. I saw Alexi Lawless say this is a young team that is taking a step toward World Cup participation. I just am always reminded that what I witnessed last night with the U.S. men's national team in Mexico, it kind of looks the same as the U.S. team always looks. It's like, get excited for a minute, spend all the time defending your own goal. I mean, it just seemed like that the ball was like right next to their goal the entire time, and then lose in the end. But other than that, very novice at it. James, great job today. Great job from everybody else out there as well. What's this? If nothing else, a fella is sure to get lucky there. Drunk smoke shows just to embarrass their fathers. Yeah. Doug says, is there any way to help me get some free state fair tickets? Doug's like asking for 4. Doug is the guy that wants, and I've got it here. Do you know? He wants my Yes Sir shirt.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, I've got it back here on my desk. Have you seen my office back there?
I have, yes.
Oh, good. That guy's golf club's still back there, too.
Did you ever reach out to him?
Hey, as soon as I sign off of this show, I'm going to reach out to him. I promise. James, great job. Pat Boylan, Dustin DePurak, and our guy from Memphis a little bit earlier, podcast 1075thefan.com. You guys, let's do this again tomorrow at 3, shall we? 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.